From the absolute apex of power in Westeros to a cold, hard death on a toilet, today we are doing a complete deep dive into the life, the legacy, and the absolute brutality of Tywin Lannister. So to understand Tywin, you have to understand his dad, Tytos Lannister. Tytos was, for lack of a better word, a total pushover. He was nice. He wanted everyone to like him, and because of that, House Lannister became a complete joke. The Bannermen were laughing at them. They were borrowing money and never paying it back, and Tytos' mistress was basically running the show and stealing their jewelry. Tywin grew up watching his family become a laughingstock, and it traumatized him. There is this specific story about young Tywin. His dad, Tytos, decided to betroth Tywin's sister Jenna to a Frey, and not even the heir to the twins. He betrothed her to Aemon Frey, the second son of Walder Frey. It was a terrible match, a total insult to a great house. Everyone in the room just nodded along because they were used to Tytos making bad calls. But Tywin, who was literally a child at the time, was the only one to stand up and say, "This is garbage." He was the only one with a spine, even back then. Jenna actually said later that Tywin was the man of the house from the moment he could speak. He decided right then and there that he would never be laughed at, and he would never be weak. All of his actions are motivated by this trauma. When the Rains of Castamere and the Tarbex rebelled against his dad, Tywin didn't wait for permission. He marched the army out there, and he extinguished their entire bloodline. He drowned them in their own minds. He burned their castles to the ground. That song, The Rains of Castamere, that's Tywin's theme song. It's a warning. He had musicians play it to other houses just to remind them, hey, remember those guys I completely erased from existence? Don't be them. When House Farman started acting up years later, Tywin didn't even send an army. He just sent a guy with a lute to play that song in their court. Lord Farman heard the music, wet his pants, and immediately fell back in line. After he restored his house's glory, he became Hand of the King to Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King. And Tywin was actually a great ruler. For 20 years, the realm was peaceful and rich because Tywin was doing all the work while Aerys was slowly losing his mind. People even started saying that it was Tywin running the show, not the king. There is this famous line where someone says, Tywin rules the Seven Kingdoms, but Aerys wears the crown. That is exactly what Aerys hated hearing. This is where things get spicy because Aerys and Tywin used to be friends. They were boys together. But as Tywin got more competent on, Aerys got more paranoid. The king started hearing people say that Tywin was the real ruler, so he had Ilan Payne's tongue ripped out with hot pincers just for mentioning it. But Aerys got jealous. He started insulting Tywin, making moves on his wife Joanna. There were even rumors that Joanna had been Aerys's mistress before she married Tywin, which drove Tywin crazy, and then he named Jaime Lannister to the Kingsguard. Now, on paper, that sounds like an honor, but Tywin knew what it really was. It was Aerys stealing his heir. Kingsguard can't marry or hold lands, so Aerys was basically forcing Tywin to leave Casterly Rock to Tyrion, the son he despised, and the insult didn't stop there. When Tywin tried to betroth Cersei to Prince Rhaegar, Aerys laughed in his face and said, "You are my most able servant, Tywin, but a man does not marry his heir to his servant's daughter." Tywin resigned, went home, and sat out Robert's rebellion until the very end. Speaking of his kids, let's talk about Tywin's parenting style. He loved his wife, Joanna, more than anyone. According to his sister Jenna, Tywin only smiled 3 times in his life. When he married Joanna, when he became Hand, and when he wiped out House Ring. That's it. When she died giving birth to Tyrion, a part of Tywin died too. He never smiled again. He blamed Tyrion for her death, calling him a spiteful little creature. It's ironic, right? Because out of all his kids, Tyrion is the one who is actually the most like him. Smart, strategic, capable. But Tywin is so blinded by grief and ableist prejudice that he can't see it. He even put Tyrion in charge of the drains and cisterns at Casterly Rock as a coming-of-age gift, literally making him the master of sewage just to humiliate him. He's obsessed with Jaime being the perfect knight and heir, even though Jaime just wants to swing a sword and be with Cersei. Tywin personally taught Jaime to read because Jaime had dyslexia. He sat with him for 4 hours a day until he got it. He was dedicated, sure, but he was also terrified of having an imperfect son. And he completely ignores Cersei's ambition because she's a woman, using her only as a bargaining chip for marriage alliances. He wants a dynasty that lasts 1,000 years, but he's so cold to his children that he ensures they'll be messed up enough to destroy it the second he's gone. When Robert's rebellion happened, Tywin stayed neutral until he knew Robert was going to win. Then he marched to King's Landing, tricked Aerys into opening the gates, mostly because Grand Maester Pycelle, who was a total Tywin fanboy, convinced the king to trust him and sacked the city. This is where Tywin goes from tough leader to war criminal. He ordered the deaths of Rhaegar Targaryen's children. He had the mountains smash a baby's head against a wall. And let's not forget Amory Lorch, who dragged the little Princess Rhaenys out from under a bed and stabbed her 50 times. Tywin later said this was necessary to prove they had forsaken the Targaryens forever. But even he admitted, the mountain went too far with Alia Martell. He didn't order it, but he didn't exactly punish Gregor for it either. He actually said, "I didn't tell him to kill her, but I didn't tell him not to," which is the classic Tywin way of washing his hands of the blood while still benefiting from the violence. Why? To prove loyalty to Robert Baratheon. It was brutal, but it worked. Robert married Cersei, and the Lannisters became the real power behind the throne. Fast forward to the start of the main story. Tywin is chilling at Casterly Rock when Catelyn Stark arrests Tyrion. Now, Tywin hates Tyrion, but he loves the family name more. He basically says, "Nobody touches a Lannister," and starts a war over it. He invades the Riverlands and just starts torching everything. When Jaime attacks Ned Stark in the streets, Tywin actually lectures him not for attacking Ned, but for letting him live because it wasn't clean. He gives Jaime 30,000 men and sends him to besiege Riverrun. Meanwhile, Tywin prepares to fight Robb Stark at the Battle of the Green Fork, and this is a detail people miss. Tywin put Tyrion and the Hill tribes in the vanguard, the front lines. He fully expected, and honestly, probably hoped that Tyrion would die in the battle. It was a win-win for him. If Tyrion fights well, great. If he dies, Tywin is finally rid of his embarrassment. But then Robb Stark, this teenage boy from the north, outsmarts them. He captures Jaime at the Whispering Wood. Tywin is stunned. He realizes he's not fighting a bunch of barbarians, he's fighting a tactician. This leads to one of the most interesting phases of Tywin's life, his time at Harrenhal. He takes over the castle, and he finds this cupbearer who is smart, literate, and spunky. When he arrives, he finds Gregor Clegane torturing prisoners for info. Tywin shuts it down immediately, not because he's nice, but because it's a waste of manpower. He's pragmatic to the bone. He doesn't realize the cupbearer is Arya Stark, which is wild, but their interactions are gold. He actually respects her. He talks to her about history, about his dad, and about what makes a good ruler. It's one of the few times we see Tywin actually being almost human. He's still scary, but he appreciates intelligence wherever he finds it. He figures out she's a northerner, but he doesn't hurt her. He almost seems to enjoy the intellectual sparring. It shows that Tywin is lonely at the top. He's surrounded by idiots and yes men. He literally fires his own bannerman for being illiterate and messing up a letter, and this little girl is the only one giving him real talk. But while he's bonding with Arya, King's Landing is about to fall. Stannis is attacking. Tywin pulls off a massive strategic pivot. He allies with the Tyrells, the family he knows is ambitious and dangerous, and marches south. He bursts into the throne room at the end of the Battle of the Blackwater, literally riding his horse up to the Iron Throne, and is declared the savior of the city. His horse takes a giant dump right at the doors of the throne room, which is the most unintentionally hilarious power move in Westerosi history. He takes over as Hand of the King again and immediately starts putting Joffrey in check. There is this incredible scene in the Small Council where Tywin sends Joffrey to bed because he's acting out. Joffrey screams, "I am the king!" and Tywin just sits there, completely unbothered, and dominates the room without raising his voice. Joffrey tries to flex on him, and Tywin just stares him down until the king of Westeros looks like a pouting toddler. Tywin shuts down the "I am the king" talk with the famous line, "Any man who must say, 'I am the king,' is no true king." Before we talk about the Red Wedding, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Seriously, it ensures Tywin Lannister doesn't show up at your house with a crossbow. Join the winning team. Don't be a Stark in a world of Lannisters. Okay, back to the betrayal. So, the War of the Five Kings is dragging on. Robb Stark is winning every battle, but he's losing the politics. Tywin sees an opening. He doesn't want to fight Robb in the field anymore. It's too risky. So he picks up a quill. He writes letters to Walder Frey and Roose Bolton. He orchestrates the Red Wedding. He promises them protection and rewards if they betray the Starks. When Tyrion confronts him about it, asking about the honor of slaughtering people at a dinner, Tywin hits him with that cold utilitarian logic. Explain to me why it is more noble to kill 10,000 men in battle than a dozen at dinner. From a numbers perspective, he's right. He ended the war in one night. He even had the Stark ancestral sword, ice, melted down. He threw the wolf pelt scabbard into the fire himself. He wanted to dismantle their entire identity and turn their legacy into 2 new swords for his own family, Oathkeeper and Widow's Wail. It's disrespect. But from a moral perspective, it's monstrous. It cursed his family. The North remembers, and nobody trusts a Frey or a Lannister ever again. But Tywin doesn't care about being liked. He cares about winning. With the war won, Tywin focuses on securing the legacy. He forces Tyrion to marry Sansa Stark to get the North. He plans to marry Cersei to Loras Tyrell to get the Reach. And the showdown with Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns, is legendary. Olenna calls him out, refusing to marry Loras to Cersei because Cersei is too old. Tywin threatens to name Loras to the Kingsguard, which would strip him of his inheritance and destroy House Tyrell's future. He forces Olenna to snap her quill in defeat. He's the only person who ever really beat Olenna at her own game. He treats his children like breeding stock. The scene where he tells Cersei she's old and her value is declining is brutal. He tells Tyrion he's an ill-made, spiteful little creature, but still gives him the Master of Coin job because he knows Tyrion is capable. And here's the big secret Tywin was hiding. House Lannister was broke. Gold mines at Casterly Rock had run dry years ago. Tywin was bluffing the entire world with the Tywin shits gold reputation, while desperately needing the Tyrell fortune to pay back the Iron Bank. The entire Lannister power structure was a house of cards that only he knew how to hold up. It's this constant push-pull. He uses them, abuses them, and expects them to say, "Thank you, Daddy." Then Joffrey dies at the Purple Wedding. Tywin, honestly, he doesn't seem that upset. He knew Joffrey was a monster and a liability. He immediately moves on to Tommen, the younger brother. There's this scene in the Sept over Joffrey's dead body, where Tywin starts mentoring Tommen. He explains that a good king listens to his counselors, aka Tywin. He's already grooming the next puppet, but he also sees an opportunity to get rid of Tyrion. Cersei accuses Tyrion of the murder, and Tywin presides over the trial. He knows Tyrion didn't do it. He has to know. Tyrion is too smart to use poison in public, but Tywin lets the farce continue. He also cuts a deal with Oberyn Martell. Oberyn hates the Lannisters, but Tywin offers him a seat on the small council and justice for Aaliyah's murder, essentially promising to throw the mountain under the bus, just to get Dorne on his side. He is always selling someone out to buy someone else. He wants to force Jaime to resign from the Kingsguard in exchange for sparing Tyrion's life and sending him to the Wall. Everything falls apart when Tyrion snaps. Shae, the woman Tyrion loved, testifies against him. Tyrion demands a trial by combat. Oberyn Martell steps in to fight the mountain, and we all know how that ends. Smashed head. Tyrion is sentenced to death. Tywin has won. He's going to get rid of his embarrassing son. He's got Tommen on the throne, the Tyrells are in check, and he's the ruler of the world. But then, Jaime frees Tyrion, and instead of fleeing, Tyrion goes up to the Tower of the Hand. He finds Shae in Tywin's bed. This is hypocrisy. Tywin spent his whole life lecturing Tyrion about whores, about not bringing them to court, about how disgusted he was by Tytos' mistress. And here is Tywin, sleeping with his son's ex-lover, a sex worker. He's just a man with need, and a hypocrite at that. Tyrion kills Shae, grabs a crossbow, and finds his father on the privy. The confrontation is legendary. Tywin, sitting on the toilet, still tries to control the situation. He tries to talk Tyrion down, not with love, but with authority. He even claims, "I would never have let them execute," which might be the only time Tywin Lannister ever backpedaled in his life. He calls Shae a whore again, even though Tyrion warns him. He tells Tyrion, "You are no son of mine," and Tyrion shoots him, twice. The most powerful man in the world dies with his pants around his ankles, killed by the son he hated, in the middle of a bowel movement. The books add a funny detail. Lord Tywin Lannister did not, in the end, shit gold. And the book details get even grosser. During his funeral, his body started to rot and smell so bad that people were vomiting in the Sept of Baelor. Tywin's death creates a massive power vacuum. He was the gravity holding everything together. Once he's gone, the Sparrows rise up because Cersei is incompetent. The Tyrell alliance falls apart. The Boltons lose their protection in the north. Kevin Lannister tries to hold it together, but he gets taken out too. Even the Iron Bank comes collected, and without Tywin's strategic genius, Cersei has no clue how to handle the debt. Tywin's obsession with legacy actually destroyed his legacy. He raised Cersei to be arrogant, but not wise, Jaime to be a fighter, but not a leader, and he turned Tyrion, his only capable heir, into his murderer. If he had just shown Tyrion an ounce of respect, House Lannister would have been unstoppable. Tyrion would have been the perfect hand, Jaime could have been the general, and they would have ruled for generations. In the end, Tyrion ends up serving as Hand of the King to Bran Stark. The son Tywin hated ended up being the last one standing, running the realm, while Tywin's precious legacy turned to ash. Instead, Tywin's cruelty caused the extinction of his own house.